next call is September 7th. I can't believe I just said September. And the objective of our call is to connect luxury-focused agents with luxury industry leaders. I am down here in Tampa, Florida. Jennifer Scales, Anjali is in Tampa as well. Julia Wright from Tampa, a few of us down here. Jason Smith is in Miami, and he's gonna join us in a second.
Right here.
Great. And then just a couple housekeeping notes. If you received this invitation, then you are on our list and you will also receive a follow-up and a recording. And if you did not receive the invitation, someone shared it with you or you saw it on social media, I'm going to, as soon as I stop talking, put in the chat how you can provide me your email for future invitations. I think that's it. Also stay on the line after Jason and Jason are done talking. If you are in need of a luxury referral agent, we stick around at the end and we'll help you connect with someone if you are in need. But for now, Anjali, if you wanna get started with introduction to Jason, I'll put a few notes in the chat.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jen. Welcome, everybody. This is one of the most exciting calls we've had. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Jason Abrams himself making time to be with us. Or as he humbly shakes his head, that is wonderful. Thank you. Jason is head of industry and sits in Austin, Texas. And he brings with him 20 years of experience as an operating principal, team leader, KW Maps coach, and a founding board member of KW KidScan. I mean, there really isn't much you haven't done, is there? He's also a mega agent business owner who has sold real estate across 3 continents.
Okay, they don't
Keep up, people.
They don't care. They really don't. I appreciate
they
that, though.
do. They do. But can I talk about one thing that's really cool? I mean, we all know you've been on HGTV with Scoring the Deal and, you know.
The only person that watched that was my mom, but yes, I did that.
Not true. We can take a poll right now. But let's talk about one of your interesting things as well, which is school is cool. Now, that is something, yes.
That I will talk about. I'm really passionate about that. So, you know, we're an education-based company. We always have been. And
Absolutely.
The models and systems that we write drive the entire industry. And so now every single Thursday, we're doing the School is Cool call, where we cover our educational model. And then every single week, we're teaching a new tactic that we're hearing, all based on agent interviews. And it's all proven stuff. It's the call I'm most excited about every single week.
What time is it on Thursdays?
That is such a great question. And because I don't know the answer, Trisha, so we're going to find out and then let everybody know.
We will post it.
I think it's 11 o'clock Central.
About it, like national offer script.
Oops.
Trisha's going to hop on it. Trisha's going to hop on here and then put the link in the chat for everybody.
That'd be terrific.
Absolutely wonderful. Okay, I will not ask you any more questions like this, I promise.
Okay.
Over to you, Jason Smith. Let the two Jason have a chat now.
Awesome. Thank you, Anjali. Thank you, Jen. Welcome, Jason Abrams. Pleasure to have you. Thank you very much for investing some time with us today. So we'll get right to it. Tell us about yourself and how did it all start for you in real estate, Jason Abrams?
Yeah, let's keep that short because that's not a duplicatable model for anybody. I went on an elongated high school plan, graduated with a 1.8, and in Michigan at the time, it only took 4 days to get a real estate license. And so I took the test. I got the requisite C- to allow me to help people purchase and sell the most expensive liquid asset that they have, and became a real estate agent at 19.
Nice. Okay. It says here, and just researching you, it says that for several years of the NFL draft, you took 17% of those NFL draft picks worked with you for housing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's a fair average over that time. I mean, in 2016, I hit 29% of the first round of that draft. I think all told, I represented just over 800 active NFL players during that period. That's between myself and then our sister company, which was a mortgage / payday loan business, which I know sounds a little weird, but NFL players only get paid 16 weeks out of the year because it's a 16-week season. And so a lot of them have budgeting issues. I was the guy that helped you make it to your next paycheck.
Understood. And it said that you wouldn't sell a property to somebody in their first year. You would have them rent first. You would not sell, correct?
That was a rule that we had. You know, it was so depressing, right? Because I got these kids and they were kids at the time. The interesting thing about working with athletes is every year they're still kids and you get older. And so the challenge was I would get you for your first house and things were going great. And I would go on this ride with you during your career. I was the last face you saw when you were leaving a city and the first face you saw when you went to a new city. And then I was helping everybody through bankruptcy. And I got really tired of that. And I decided that one of the problems was that they were buying real estate without any understanding of how to live. And so I said, I won't sell you a house your first year. You have to rent. And then you have to go through the same process as if you were going to buy. So like I used to run comps for rentals and make them look at the spreadsheets. And I had this misguided idea that would help. I managed to move the needle zero, and the bankruptcy rate with professional athletes actually went up during my tenure. So it was an epic failure.
Wow. What an education though it must have been, that so much income coming in doesn't guarantee wealth in the end, and how to use your money wisely.
Well, yeah, your income's not your net worth, which is huge for realtors because we're a stupid industry that celebrates a bunch of people for walking across the stage with absolutely no idea how much money they're actually making. And on one hand, I love that about our industry because we look for any reason to celebrate. On the other hand, I think that there are people that have trophies on their wall that are living below a poverty line, and I find that unacceptable because I want everyone to live a bigger life. And so the question isn't how much money you're going to make. That's a discussion about having a good year. The question is how much you're going to keep and then invest. And that's a discussion about a good career. So your net worth is not your income. There's a giant misconception about that, I think.
Wow. And you saw
You know
that
how that hit me so cold. I remember I was being interviewed by, or I was interviewing a real estate agent, a killer. And I said, so how many, she said to me, so I know that you sell a lot of units. Because at the time I was in business partners with a guy named Brian Gubernick and another guy named Brett Tanner. And so between us, we were doing small numbers now compared to the huge teams. We were like 600 or 700 units, which we thought was a lot. It's not anymore. And I said, so how many units for you? And she said 8. And I was like, what do you mean 8? And she said, well, I think it's adorable that you count the number of homes that you sell. I count the number of properties that I buy in cash each year. This year, mine was 8. I remember like sitting back and all the courage drained out of my face really quick. And I was thinking, this is a woman who, she just inspired me, that, and I just never forgot that.
Amazing.
Not that there's anything wrong with counting units, by the way. For me, that hit me in the face that day. And it's still bleeding.
We hear you and Gary Keller talking a lot about fiduciary versus functionary. And I'm just seeing by the way you operated, the fact that you wouldn't sell them a house their first year, total fiduciary relationship that you had with them, correct?
Well, yes. And I mean, I'm into self-preservation. My business was largely based on getting referrals from sports agents and financial advisors. Financial advisors get paid on BIPs with assets under management, meaning when money leaves the account, they stop making money. So being the guy that says, I won't sell him a house the first year, financial advisors move emotionally closer to that concept. So I'd love to say it was all altruistic. It was a great business model.
Something that all of us on the call can, take a hint or a tip in our business, fiduciary versus functional, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how you're going to make your money, like just understand that the vast majority of people are willing to pay just for the functionary, because the general consumer is completely confused on the difference between the two. But the truth is, I believe, at least for me, and y'all sell more luxury real estate probably than I ever did. But the way that I thought about it was that if buyers and sellers are here and realtors were down here, there was all this space in the middle. And this space in the middle had to be filled by something. And you could call it mind share. In my mind, it was filled with the laugh group, lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors. That seemed to be the only general connection that all rich people had. And I was misguided at the beginning. For me, I was trying to find a niche behavioral trait. I was saying, well, what do rich people do? Well, they golf. Well, what else did they do? Well, they hang out at equestrian places. Well, what else? Well, they travel. And yeah, sure, there are these connective tissues. The problem is golf never refers you a deal. You might get a deal golfing with someone, but golf will never call you and be like, yo, Jason, it's golf. Call so like that doesn't matter. But lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors will. And so my entire life was based around these three things. And I had a simple model for it. For lawyers, I decided to go all in on divorce. The average divorce attorney does 10 divorces a year. That means that the average divorce attorney is connected to a marital home that has to sell 10 times. But then each ex needs to buy or rent. So now you're talking 30. So now you're at 360. 20% of that is 72 deals a year per divorce attorney in this country. So how many of you had lunch with a divorce attorney this week to talk about something other than your divorce? And I'm always amazed that like no one raises their hand. And I was like, that's dumb. As far as I'm concerned, divorce attorneys are the asset managers of the wealthy. 54% are going to get divorced. And by the way, when you go into a shifting market, that number skyrockets. Depending on the severity of a recession, affluent people divorce rate spikes as high as 34%. Other people spike 9%. Why? Well, because they were poor and having money problems always. With rich folks, it's a little different on the luxury side. I think what happens is you look up and say, okay, we were going to Hawaii every year. We were driving luxury cars every year and we were living in a great house. Now we can't do those things. I didn't really like you then. And all of a sudden, the divorce rate spikes. And so that was key. Accountants, that was key. And financial advisors was the most important because at some point, everybody calls their advisor prior to making a giant decision. And so I would use the Forbes 1200 list. If you guys use that list, it breaks up every city. There's 1,200 people on it. It's the largest 1,200 from AUM, assets under management. And my model is any city I live in, I'm going to know everyone managing more than $500 million.
So what does that look like? Is that a meeting once a quarter, Jason? Is it a phone call?
I don't think anyone wants to meet with you once a quarter. I think maybe people in your data bank might want to because they actually like you. I'm under no illusion that business to business is different than SOI. And so I break my world into two sides. It's the Forbes 1200, Serena. I see you in the chat. By the way, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'm watching it. I think with SOI, meeting once a quarter, I think Popeye, we could have a whole discussion on what I think that looks like. For business to business, I think you have to add value. And I think that anytime you're going to think about value, you just write the words needed and useful. And so right now, if you thought about everything you're sending to your SOI, how much of it is needed or useful? I'm going to guess very little. No offense. It's just what my experience has been. And I think some of us are a little confused on what's needed and useful. I'll give you a great example. I got a postcard the other day from a realtor, and I live in what I would consider to be a luxury community. And it said it's the time of years to have your gutters cleaned coming into the fall. You know how I got the postcard? It's because my wife gave it to me and told me to clean the gutters. And I was thinking, well, this is shit. This isn't needed or useful. Like if I wanted somebody to send a list of stuff for me to do to my house, I can't imagine ever wanting that. It would be needed or useful if my realtor called and said, hey, it's the time of year to clean your gutters. You're one of my best people in my SOI. Do you mind if I send someone over to do it for you? It's not just my job to help you buy a beautiful home. I want to help you live beautifully. Can I handle your gutters from now on? That would be the greatest $70 gift a realtor could ever give me. That would be needed and useful. So for me, what's needed and useful to a financial advisor, my value prop was this. You give me a list of every single person that you're representing's addresses. I don't need their names. I just need their addresses. And I don't care if they have property all over the world, with most of my people did. And I'll give you once a quarter a one-page abstract on that property. And my abstract was really simple. This is the property address. This is the legal address. This is when you bought it. I know you're going to think that's silly. Financial advisors don't keep track of that because they don't monetize it. And when you bought something gets forgotten the more and longer you live in it. Then what you paid for it. So every quarter you get to be reminded of what you paid for your house. I think that's important because after 8 years in a property, no one really remembers. They think they do. Then it would have a little section on property taxes. Here's where your taxes are. This is the trend up and down, average in the neighborhood, the trend up and down, and then an estimated value for the property. And I would say, look, send me the list once a quarter. I'll give this to you. The value for the financial advisor is now once a quarter when they're sitting with their customers and they're going over all of the assets that they have in their portfolio. And they're waxing poetically on modern portfolio theory and all these things. They can also say, oh, by the way, I've hired a real estate expert to give us a one-page abstract on all your properties each year. This is what your real estate portfolio looks like. And my only ask is when they want, every one of those meetings, by the way, on a long enough basis ends with someone saying, you know what, we're going to sell the vacation home. Or I'm so glad we're actually going to get rid of that property. Or you know what, we want to buy our kid a property. And I just said, all I ask is that when that happens, no matter where the property is in the world, that I get a shot to have a conversation with your customer on that day. I'll never reach out to them outside of you calling me and connecting me on that day. And that was really powerful. We hit a point where we were running almost 3,000 of those on a monthly basis.
3,000 what?
On a quarterly basis. We were doing 3,000 abstract pages a quarter. That was our primary lead generation model.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So just telling us more about the luxury buyers and sellers. What do most of us not know about when dealing with them? Anything else you can give us when approaching from a mindset standpoint? Anything else?
I think with this group, I think you guys
roll down.
I think everyone in this group knows it all. I'm sure of that. So I can't tell you anything you don't know. Maybe I can tell you something you do, but in an unexpected way. And the person who I think does that best is Brady Sandall. And he said to me, I said, Brady, what's luxury? And he said, oh, it's really simple. Luxury is what everybody wants. They want it easier, they want it faster, and they want it more beautifully delivered. And I said, man, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. And he said, well, if you were to check into the Four Seasons and it took an hour to check in, it wouldn't matter anything else. That's no longer a luxury experience. Or if you were to check into the Four Seasons and it took 1 minute, but you got to your room and it was a mess, or it just wasn't nice, it doesn't matter what else happens. It's not a luxury experience. Or if it took a minute to check in, but it was difficult, meaning you had to hand somebody your cell phone because they lost your reservation, all of a sudden it's no longer luxury. And it dawned on me in that moment that that's not luxury, that's just called human. Like if you're the person who wants things slower, uglier, and more cumbersome, just raise your hand now. Cool. So we all want the exact same thing. And I think the difference between luxury, quote unquote, and everything else is often found in the beauty by which it's delivered. I think that that's an afterthought for most of the planet. And I think it's the forethought for a luxury minded person.
Just make it easier, more effortless for the consumer.
I just think you look up at every point in your business and you say, great, how can I make this faster? Cool. How do I make this easier? Cool. How do I make this more beautifully delivered? And it's in beautifully delivered. I want to get clear on that. You know that when you see it, and you can define it as two things. It's either a delightful surprise or a delightful expectation. Here's the truth. There's only two ways to get somebody's attention. Either tell them something they don't know, or tell them something they do know in an unexpected way. And I want you to think about your own life right now in the essence of pleasant. When something delightful happens to you, or something luxurious happens to you, I would submit to you that it always falls into one of those two categories. You didn't know it existed and it's a new experience. You did know, and it was done in an unexpected way that made it better. Better is either faster, easier, or more beautiful. And I know that I'm crushing you with simplicity, and you're thinking, I wish he would have said something that new. But I want to tell you that if you try to outsmart simplicity, you'll probably won't do anything anyone remembers you for.
Gotcha.
This is simple but profound. It's definitely profound.
It's not mine. It's all Brady's. I took his whole shtick, and none of that's mine. So let him know you think it's cool.
Interesting. So in terms of likability, you said during the pandemic, when the pandemic was setting in on some of these big calls, that likability, that agents keeping it down to simplicity again, people will do business with people they like. We've heard it before, but can you talk more about that whole piece?
I think that's it. I think residential real estate is a giant popularity contest. Like I'm waking up and reliving high school every day. I think people do business with people they like, and everything else is everything else. And by the way, everybody here that has like that giant operations binder, really valuable. I think that's great, but I don't think that's your business. I think that's your operation. The logistics of success, that's what that is, really important. But at the end of the day, the human principle that people do business with people they like, I don't see that changing. I think that's why no one swipes right to buy a house. And I think that's how we insulate in a people-driven business. And so if you wake up and you're in your 30s or 40s and you can't define the 100 people that know you, like you, and care about you, you should go do something else, because we're in a people business that's driven by relationship. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to question and say, okay, well, then how do you define likability? And I would tell you that I would define it whether I'm selling a $100,000 house or a $30 million house, which is the most expensive one I've ever sold. And now that's a low number if you look around the world. But I would tell you that it's all about that consumer having the confidence that you're the right person to shepherd them through the next phase. That's likability. Now, what tactic you use to become more likable, that we could talk about for the next 3 hours, because there's so many out there to do it.
I think the next question is, how do you become likable at scale? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you ignore the word scale. When I think of scale, I think of somebody who is trying to do 1.2 million units. So Gary's focusing on scale. I think for the super majority of us that are running luxury-based real estate businesses, I don't think you have to worry about scale. I think you have to worry about the number of units that you want to do based on the desired outcome that you want to have. So in the quest for more, run in the other direction. Actually know what you're playing for so that you know when you've actually accomplished it. That's number one. Number two, I think likability comes down to what you want to be doing. So if you're waking up every day and you're asking the focusing question, how do I force myself to do an activity that I don't like? I think that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I think there's an actual place for that. It's called prison. They'll give you stuff to do all day that you don't like. That's not what this thing of ours was supposed to be. This thing of ours was supposed to be this thing where you wake up every day as your own boss and love it. Because I'm amazed every day that I talk to realtors who wake up and say, I don't really like the activities I'm doing. And I'm like, well, then you're an idiot. You own the business. Okay, why would you own that company? And people look at me as if that's like a novel approach. And I'm like, well, let's look at it slightly differently. The things that you actually enjoy doing are probably the connective shared experiences with the people that you would want to do business with, because those are the people that would like you. Like, I'm just going out on a limb here. But for most of us that are trying to be in relationship-based businesses, it implies that you would be in a relationship. And so what are the core tenets of a relationship? Usually it's shared experience at some level. And so I take a kind of a human approach to it. Like, write down right now the 5 things that you love doing that you're not doing enough of. And here's the thing, the data is the data. Meaning, if you loved playing tennis and now you're not doing it, write down tennis. If you loved playing golf and now you're not doing it, write down golf. Now, here's what the data says. The data says, guys, you're doing the things you want to be doing. And ladies, you're not. I didn't write the data. I'm reporting the news. Please don't get upset with me. The data says, ladies, and our industry is 62% strong female leadership. So I'm going to talk directly to that group because our entire company is built on it. The data says you will take care of everybody else's needs before you even consider your own. That's what the data says. And so here's what I'm going to say. I love that. Thank you. Every one of you, thank you. Because I've been the beneficiary of that. I know that's been true with the women in my life. My needs have been met. That said, stop it. Make a list of the things that you want to be doing and then commit to doing them 3 or 4 days a week. And the only thing you have to add to that, do them with strangers. So if you love playing tennis, great. Play twice a week and make sure you're doing it with people that you don't know. You're gonna make a lot of money. I tell the story all the time of this woman in Savannah, Georgia. I won't wax poetically and give you the whole thing, but here's what she discovered. She discovered that there was a lot of women in Savannah, Georgia that would have liked playing tennis. And so here's what she did. She said, who does the people that I know, she used to love playing tennis. She said, who do you know that would like to play with me? She got a list of 7 strangers. She called all 7. and said, look, I used to love playing tennis. I don't play anymore. I'd love to play. Do you want to play with me? She was amazed that they all said yes. Here's what she did, you guys. She started playing Tuesdays from 11 to 1. Now, just for a side note, who else is playing tennis on Tuesday from 11 to 1? Rich people. Right. The homeless don't even play, it turns out, at scale. Now she's playing tennis from 11 to 1 with these people. Here's the model. Number one, you touch them before the event, meaning you're telling them where they're playing. You're the one who's organizing it. Number two, you got to make the event easier for all of them. Here's how she did it. She said, don't worry about bringing water. I'm bringing it. Don't worry about bringing tennis balls. I'm bringing it. Don't worry about orange slices and a stupid snack. I got you covered. All you do is show up. I'm taking care of getting the courts and everything else. Next step, you got to enjoy the activity. You can't be there. You remember at like your first wedding when you went table to table, making sure everyone else was having a good time? And then at your second one, you just ate. It's your second one. So you have to go and actually enjoy playing tennis. People know. That's the whole idea of dance like no one's watching. It's because if you do that, everyone else dances too. You got to enjoy the event. And the last step, at the end of the event, you have to wind it up for everybody via email or text. We had a great time. Nikki beat Georgia. Samantha broke her ankle. She's out, unfortunately. Jennifer did great. You got to wind it together. You're the mayor of Tennis Town. Y'all, if that's all you did twice a week, and each week you had 6 or 7 other people, I just want you to know you'd never have to go look for a deal again, because here's the simple truth. That would become the best part of their week. You know how I know? Because write down the best part of your week. I bet it's lame. You know how I came to this conclusion? A buddy of mine, he had a baby. Well, his wife had the baby. And we had poker night on Thursday nights. We were younger. And he said, we have to move poker nights. And I said, dude, we've been doing poker night forever. He goes, we got to move it to Wednesdays because my wife is busy on Thursdays. And I said, what do you mean she's busy? You have a 90-day-old child. And she said, my wife goes to the grocery store on Thursday nights. And I was like, what, dude? And he was like, yeah, she goes grocery shopping on Thursday nights, every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And I was like, bro, she's not. You believe that? And he did. I said, I got you. And so I tailed her 2 Thursday nights in a row because I'm a good friend. And I was blown away what I found. The first night I parked, I hit up the street. She pulled out, I came out 2 cars, a reasonable tail distance. And she drove, and I watched her pull into a grocery store. I watched her park. Then I watched her get out of her car, and she met 2 other people. They were all dressed the same, skin-tight black pants and Ugg boots. I thought it was a cult. And then I watched the most perverse thing I have ever seen over the next hour. They went aisle by aisle in the grocery store. I couldn't believe it. I called my mom and said, Mom, what are they doing? I was waiting for like a group of guys to jump out of the tomatoes or like a club to open up in the frozen section. You know what my mom told me? She said, you're a stupid boy. You don't understand anything. I said, well, tell me. And she said, I bet you Thursday night grocery shopping is the greatest part of her week. She's doing it with 2 other women that I bet you can understand where she's at. I bet you just being away from that baby is probably the most freeing thing. And I bet you that you've discounted the experience that she looks forward to. And it dawned on me. If you can become the best part of somebody's week, you never have to look for a real estate deal again. And so I don't care if it's tennis. I don't care if it's yoga. I don't care if it's wine tasting. There's a kid in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He loves board games. And so every Thursday night, at 6 o'clock, he found a bar. They set up 3 high top tables of board games. I'm an adult, but this is what he likes. Y'all, there's a bunch of people that after work want to come for a drink and play a board game. Blows me away. But I guess that's what I'm thinking is likability. Likability starts with liking your day and liking yourself. And then everybody else just seems to fall into place and like you too.
Wow. Great stuff, Jason. Thank you for that. Good stuff. So the whole thing of the notion of grin and bear it. And when it comes to lead generation, it's not necessary. Find something that you like, that you can become habitual with, that you enjoy, and that will just emanate from you. And you'll just have this tribe, this community that will gravitate towards you is what I'm hearing you say.
100%. I'm always amazed. People are like, I love playing golf. And I'm like, how often do you play? And they're like, not enough. And I'm like, you should play 3 days a week with 3 strangers each time. That's 12 new people a week into the data bank. Make it better. Are you kidding me? Like, I can't understand that. This grin and bear it is so dumb. There's so many other parts of your life where you have to do that. And by the way, if you're going to do this model, it's the only advice I would give you, you got to take your significant other along on the journey. Because if all of a sudden you're like, hey, I got to golf 3 times a week, but trust me, it's business. You're not going to win that. You have to explain the model, and you actually have to have a model. But it works for everything. I met a woman who does it with shopping. Once a week on Wednesday mornings, she put together, this sounds like the 7th circle of hell to me, but she put together a shopping group. They meet in the mall in the middle of the mall at 9 a.m. The only other people there are the walkers. They meet in the mall, and then they all talk about what they're going to go buy. And then they all go out for an hour and they buy it. And then they come back and show each other. What? Yes. Awful, but real. And by the way, it's not like they don't like ball 100 deep into Vicky's Secret altogether. That's not what happens. They self-segment. It's natural. 3 or 4 that like each other go together. 2 or 3 that like each other go together. And then they come back and there's this community. This real estate agent's like the mayor of Shopping Town. During the holiday season, she'll get 100+ women that'll join this group. It's the best part of their week. And here's what ends up happening. The amazing thing in that group, they ended up all becoming friendly. And then they started inviting each other to their life. And so now when you show up, they're like, what are you doing? Well, I'm buying a shower gift for Janet. Janet's in the group going to get something else it's just human.
Wow. With the 100 people on this call, it'd be interesting if we could get some feedback, what types of groups or tribes they belong to give the rest of us some ideas. Like one for me, like Toastmasters, public speaking comes to mind. I used to get a lot of business from that. Some people are avid sailors here in Miami. Dan Grebe in Orlando, he's the hub of his running network, marathon network over there in Orlando, to your point, and he organizes it. So he gets a lot of business, photography, wine tasting, some food pantry. Start with your avatar, Andrew Bloom.
There's no wrong idea as long as you have a model. And the biggest mistake I see is that people run out to do stuff and they don't have a model. And I get it, because doing is easier than thinking. Totally. You got to have a model. And the model is something I love at least twice a week with strangers, 1 contact before, do it like I love it, 1 contact after, make the event easier for everybody. And the overall goal become the best part of their week.
What a formula. So simple, so much fun, and you're becoming the best part of the week. That's so fantastic, Jason. Thank you for that. Thank you. Real quickly, before we open it up to audience questions, you said that I read that you used to go to the Capitol Grill intentionally to order breadsticks and a glass of water, and you sit there for 2 or 3 hours with the intention of meeting these divorce attorneys and other professionals. Can you share with us, did you have a script as to how you would approach each person and break the ice?
I wish I did. I wish I would have had a better model. Mine was just, and I've always loved it. I love lunch. I start with dessert. I know. It's just what I like, right? And so I didn't know any divorce. I was 19. I didn't know anyone with money. I grew up in a $40,000 house neighborhood. Like the one divorce attorney in my neighborhood worked out of it was like a office. Like you got divorced in his living room. And I had this amazing experience. The way that I found all that, I had been in the business for 6 months or so, and I had done 1 lease. And I was at this company with these awesome gold jackets. My mom had bought me the jacket, and I was struggling mightily. And the divorce attorney in our neighborhood kind of took pity on me and referred my mom a customer. I went to their house and I knocked on the door, and this guy goes, "Are you the realtor?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Great. We hate each other, and we need to sign papers and sell this house." And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "We can't even be in the same room. I'm going to meet with you in the kitchen." And this is all in the doorway. My wife, she'll meet with you in the living room, and we need to sell. And I was like, "Great. But we have to slow this process down because I have this binder and I need to take you through. I have a whole presentation. You're going to love it. Everyone loves it." And he was like, "I don't need any of that shit. We need to sell." I was in and out of that house in 8 minutes. And I remember I got in my Grand Am and I like rolled down the windows and like turned on Living on a Prayer. Like Bon Jovi was, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever." So the next morning I drove back to that divorce attorney's office and I said, "Bro, dude, that was the greatest day of my life." Because that was like a $200,000 house. I had never been in a house like that. I was like, this might as well have been like where the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air lived. Like I was blown away. And I was like, I need more of that. And he goes, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, how many people do you have that hate each other that much? I need that. And he goes, I don't have any more of those. And I was like, how about people that are just genuinely dislike each other and are on the road to hate? I'll take that because I think I can push them over the edge. And he said, no, I don't have any of that either. And I was so crushed. Like, imagine you think you have found the cure to the plague of poverty only to find out that it's not duplicatable. And then I realized really quickly that this person didn't have more people that hate each other. But what he had was a business that was built on finding a disproportionate number of people that do. That was all I needed to see. And I'm not saying that that's the right answer for everybody. And by the way, anytime I tell that story, someone undoubtedly says, well, you're an ambulance chaser going after people at their most inopportune time. And I you're right. I 100% am. As a matter of fact, if I was a doctor and I thought that these hands could save people, I would be chasing every ambulance in town because I would want to operate on everybody that I can help. Mm-hmm. And I feel the same way about people who are going through a divorce. If any of you have been through one, you know you need a realtor. And so you're not going to be as passionate about that segment. What I'm suggesting, though, is that you be able to define your model as succinctly as I can. If it's people do business with people they like, great. Give me the model to be more likable more often to more people. Mm-hmm. If it's I'm going to get business from attorneys, great. Give me the item of value that's needed and wanted that's going to help you get business to business. If it's I'm going to have a sphere of influence-based business, great. Show me the touches that yield the best response.
Excellent. So many good nuggets, Jason. Thank you for sharing all this with us. Let's open it up, if we can, now to some questions here. Who has some questions for Jason Abrams, who's sharing his time with us today? Head of industry for KWX of Keller Williams.
I don't have a question, but I have to say, Jason, that was awesome. I mean, the simplicity of that, mind blown. And I just love your deadpan, straight-faced, humorous delivery. Can we have you on every single time, please?
I didn't know that this call happens so often. Would be honored to come back anytime.
We're going to take you up on that.
Weekly.
We got a question from iPhone.
Oh, that's me. I'm surprised that my contact information doesn't show up. It's Candace Rich, Birmingham, Michigan, same area as you.
Hey, Candace.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
I do something similar to your one-page report. I'm a former CPA tax attorney prior to real estate, and I do something similar, but can you give me that rundown again on what you included?
Yeah, by the way, there's no wrong answer to what you include. So I just want to be clear. The model is just the information. The way that I got to mine was it was all information I was able to pull on public records. And a lot of it I pulled on that company that rhymes with Billo. So if I was doing it.
You know what I was doing? I was only doing a CMA report. I love that you included the property taxes. And what did you, when you did the average in the neighborhood, what did you do?
Well, if I was doing it in Birmingham, Michigan, I would do it slightly differently, which, by the way, would be comparable to like Summit, New Jersey, or that little cute town in every one of your cities that is disproportionately more expensive than everywhere else in the state. And here's the way that I would think about it. Like if I was doing it in Birmingham, I would be using the mill rates and I'd be explaining what the percentage is and what mill rates is, because I think there's a giant misunderstanding on even how taxes are calculated.
Yep.
If I was doing, your area is so unique because the houses are so unique. So I don't think an average price per foot would work. I would probably be doing something where I would say in the village, it's this, it's a city north of, right? If I'm north of 14 Mile, it's this. If I'm north,
right.
I would break it up like that because those people know where they live. The key that you're going to find, it isn't that you're providing the information about their primary in the town that they live. It's that everyone that lives in Birmingham also has a place in Boca.
That's right.
And the reality of it is there's no one that is piecing together rich people's financial information. They have a realtor in every city, which is a failed model. That would be like having you guys fill in the blank. You wouldn't. You have one financial advisor. That doesn't mean that you only have investments in the state of Michigan. It just doesn't. It's dumb. So the key is that no matter where they own real estate, you provide the info. And again, I would use property address. I would use when they bought the house. I would use what they paid for the house. All that's available, public record for everybody. You don't need a special access for it. Then I would go into what their property taxes are. Every single municipality has a free tax search site. Then I would instantly go into what I believe is happening in that community. It's either it's going up or it's going down, or it's neutral. Like that's easy to blink at, especially around taxes, because that's published. And then at what the estimated value of the home is. And by the way, if I was doing it at scale today, I would be using a VA to do all of that. And I would just come up with the model. Here's where you get the address. Here's where you get the tax info. I would have a VA do 100% of it.
Well, that's great. I just hired one. Now, who are you just contacting your referral partner in Florida to run the comp for you?
I'm using that company that rhymes with Billo. I mean, I can just blink at it and see all the sales. Like
Okay.
I just don't need, I used to, when I first started, I had to have a realtor in every city. That was really hard because I was running a national business. Now information is a commodity and they're selling it for free. And the only people not using it are realtors. It's really bizarre to me. Realtors look up and they're like, I'm not going to get my info from Zillow. And I'm like, why? Everyone else is. You're going to prove a point? Understand.
That was fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here today.
Great question. Great question. Any other questions for Jason Abrams?
Nothing's off limits, y'all. You can ask anything about KW or anything that you want.
There were a few questions that came in earlier that I wasn't able to keep up with. So guys, don't be shy, jump right in. Take yourself off mute.
Well, if people are being shy, let me jump right in and ask Jason, tell us a little bit more about School is Cool. And what, who does it help? What are we going to be seeing? I
think that's designed for anyone who's wild and passionate about teaching. Like I'm teaching how to teach. That's it. And, I think the world is slightly confused on education and whether or not there's a model for it. And we have a really simple model that we just don't talk about. And so what is the educational model? And then what are the coolest things happening in the industry? Like today or tomorrow on that call, we're going to give a step-by-step model of a guy named Elio. He's 20. He did 51 deals his first year, 37 of them by way of Instagram. And so what's his model on Instagram? I'm fascinated by that. I'm wildly curious. And I think that one of the mistakes that the industry is making right now is they're writing education and content based on theory. And I have absolutely no patience for theory. I only want proven. Show me what you're already doing. Prove to me that it works. Show me that it's a model. So like if you're rich because of inheritance, I love you for that. The problem is it's not duplicatable for me. I need duplicatable, proven models, and I need a steady diet of them or I get really uncomfortable. And that's what that call is.
Nice. Any books that you would recommend, books that you've been reading, books that we need to know about in the luxury realm or just the sales realm? Any realm.
How about we do this? If you're interested in that kind of thing, can you put whatever topic you're struggling with right now in the chat and I'll tell you the perfect book for you?
Great idea.
Because I think there's, that group of people that have read every book and yet, I think that's like intellectual tourism. And it's okay to be an intellectual tourist if that's your thing and that's what you enjoy. But I will tell you this, I think there's way too much reading going on and not nearly enough models and execution happening. What you don't need is the latest thinking on leadership, because guess what? It hasn't changed. And I think that's the problem. But motivation, if I was looking for motivation, I'd read the Motivation Manifesto. I think that's a fantastic book. It's the kind of one that you can open up every day and read. A book for new agents. Well, tell me more, Cynthia. This is going to sound like I'm a plant, but I'm not. If I was a new agent, I'd probably read MREA. I'd read the red book and I'd get the model, because I still think that the model is wildly accurate, and I'm still running a lot of businesses on that model.
Well, I think there's a lot I'm learning educational wise, but I feel like it would be nice to get some books that are more kind of on the personal side. Like I like how you're talking about connecting with people and all that, because I think there's plenty of resources out there for do this, 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 and this to be an agent. I want kind of that other side that you
Yep.
seem to be really into.
The first one that I would read is Exactly What to Say, because I think the words that move people into action faster with you than without you are the foundation of any sales business. The next one I would read is Simply Said. I think that's another great book on how to speak and what to say and when to say it. And I think the words we use are really important. For me, it's really important to feel understood, which means you have to master the art of speaking, especially in sales, because what else are you really selling? And then the last one that I would probably read is The Untethered Soul. I really like Michael Singer. There's a series of 3 books that he's written. And The Untethered Soul, I'll give you like the 1-minute version, which is right now, yell hello in your mind. And which is so bizarre, right? Because you can actually yell without doing anything out loud. And you realize really quickly that that insane, lunatic, crazy person that you walk around with in your head all day is just you. And how to navigate that, which, depending on who you talk to, would tell you is the secret to all enlightenment, which would get way too esoteric. But if I was a new agent, I'd want to read that, because I think this business is built on two primary types of relationship. Codependent, because we need customers and they need us, which, by the way, is a complete mind screw if you get into that. And feeling less than. And I think our industry makes a lot of people feel less than, because we're constantly comparing things in a non-comparable way, meaning the number of units that I sell has no bearing on your life. And until we go right at that, I think you have a lot of realtors that wake up every day and feel somewhat deficient. And they look up and say, well, you didn't do business with me. What did I do wrong? Nothing. You sold more homes to me. What am I doing wrong? Nothing. I wish I would have gotten clear on that 23 years ago.
So Jason, that's such a big one, because like you said, many different numbers being compared. So the cure for that, would you say, is reading The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer? That can help that?
By the way, if there's a cure to it, I don't know it. If there's a great first place to start by getting a little more understanding, I think The Untethered Soul is great. His next one, The Surrender Experience, is really good. Living Untethered is the third one. I think that's really good. If you like to listen instead of read, I would ask you to stop calling it reading. But I would go, and there's a great lecture series. If you listen instead of read, people that read are like, well, why don't you just say listen? I don't understand that. But there's a great lecture series. It's the Untethered Soul lecture series on Spotify. It's really enjoyable.
Sounds great.
Somebody wanted one on the metaverse. It's really hard to find books on the metaverse right now. The best one on the metaverse that I have found, here's the problem with that. Because it's so new, the only books that are written by enthusiasts. Like, we're at the point where there's books that are being written in people's houses about it. And there is one that's worth reading. I've read them all, and I'll get you the title before this call ends. I just don't see it in front of me.
Jason, this is
Influencing
Mark
people.
Benson in Naples.
Yeah, the person that wanted the one on influencing people. Again, I think that's difficult. It depends how you want to influence them. There's not like one book that'll teach you how to do that. The words that you use and then the way that you stay in touch will be the thing that produces influence. And so if I was going to influence through giving a couple of gifts to customers, I'd read Giftology. I think that's the best book out there for that. If I was going to influence people through the words that I'd say, I'd read the other 2 that I just mentioned. Mark?
Excellent stuff. We have a question from Richard Calabat here in Miami, Coral Gables. Go ahead, Richard.
And then Mark Benson.
And Mark Benson in Naples. I think you're on mute if you're talking.
I'll go and then Richard can jump in.
Thank you, Mark.
Jason, you mentioned a $30 million transaction. I'm curious about that. And also, can you describe a transaction perhaps, or a client that you work with that you really found it to be the most exhilarating transaction you ever involved in?
Yeah, I most exhilarating. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've done a few cool things. I went on a listing appointment in the kind of like the outskirts farms of England. And like, I just had never seen anything like that before. And when I got there was this amazing lunch that they had set up, and they served champagne and I took the channel from France to do that deal, and then went back to France and went and spoke at a real estate convention. Like, that whole thing was charmed. I sold, there's an EDM guy named Calvin Harris. And when he wrote a song with Rihanna that came out called Yellow Diamonds. And I picked him up in a limo in LA the week that song went big. And we were out looking at mansions in LA. And then that song came on the radio. And I'm not good at doing accents, but so this is going to sound terrible. Everyone's going to cringe. But he looked up and he goes, "I'm listening to my own song while shopping for my own mansion in a limo." I remember thinking like, oh my God, like I got to be a part of that. I'll never forget that day. And every time an athlete or an entertainer bought a house for their mom or grandmother, I would fly in for those closings. Like, that was just because there's so much about sports to hate, especially now that it's all commercialized. I mean, now the hell they pay college players. But like those moments, even if it all ended badly and we had to help them move out of those homes, which was probably the worst days, those were the best. Exhilarating.
Great question, Mark. Great. Ricky Calabat, Richard, Miami, Coral Gables.
Yeah. Hey, thanks again, Jason, for being here and your sharing your brilliance with us.
Oh, hey, Ricky.
So, right now, because the market is shifting, I wanted to see what you would advise when we have, especially in the luxury space, if it's a seller's, second, third, fourth home, and they have the set number that they want to get and they don't want to reduce it, and it's I don't have to sell mentality, and some of them still actually think the market is really hot. And then on the flip side, you've got the buyers who are finally saying, yes, I'm so excited. Prices are coming down. I can't wait to buy that property that I wish I bought 2 years ago at 2 years ago prices. So how are you bridging that gap, or how would you advise to bridge that gap in what we're seeing today?
I'm taking year-long listings. I'm bridging it right now in real time. By the way, I've never been able to change anyone's mind for the better or the worse. You guys are probably more talented than I am when it comes to that kind of thing. I've never been great at that. I just believe that time heals all wounds and wounds all heals. And so I'm listing homes for a year right now. And to be honest with you, I don't really care what personal journey anyone goes through on the way. I can only tell you what I know, which is if you chase the market, you usually lose. That said, you're rich and you're going to make the decisions that are best for you and your family based on your understanding of the macroeconomics. I'm along for that ride with you. Let's just go on it for a year together.
Mm-hmm. Richard, if I can mention one thing that I heard from a very successful luxury agent here in Miami 10 years ago, he said that those types of sellers do not have to sell. They choose to sell. Therefore, you have to find them the next property that they desire more than the current property in order to lower their price on the current listing. I thought that was pretty smart. So show them other properties, these sellers that are overpriced, have them become in love with something. That's what I heard from someone else, if that helps at all.
I think that's brilliant. I just never found a solution other than time that takes care of everything. And so if you don't have a model for everything, then everything becomes a one-off process. I got to go find this person, the perfect house, to make them make a move. I love that. Personally, I'm just not that good at this. I'm betting on time because here's what I know over the next year, everyone's going to get real clear. And by the way, I don't know anyone that thinks they know where this market is going, then you're far more talented than I am. I have no idea. I just know that in a year I'll know.
So you're saying that you don't know that the market's going to go down, correct, Jason Abrams?
I have no idea. Anybody that says they do, like, I get it. I can look at indicator. Okay, got it. Like, I get it, which way the wind blows. No one knows. Like, if you actually think your financial advisor knows what's going to happen tomorrow in the market, then you're an idiot. It's just not real. You know how you know it's not real? Because you go to doctors who are supposed to know a ton more than you. How many of them treat the symptom and hope they get it right? By the way, hashtag anyone that prescribed antibiotics ever. And that's okay. They don't actually know until you get into the real deep studies when they start doing diagnosis. But no one can diagnose the economy like that because you know why? It's driven by irrational actors. If you don't think they're irrational, then go watch any news station from MSNBC to Fox News to CNN any day, and you tell me your politicians are rational actors. I don't buy it because here's the thing. They can change the entire economic in three ways. They can pass laws, they can change rates, they can change the number of quantitative easing purchases that they make. Those are the three levers. Nobody knows what they're going to do next. Now multiply that by 300 governments around the world, all dealing with different things. And then you want to tell me you know what's happening next? Don't buy it.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Any other questions? We've got, it's coming up to 11 o'clock and we know your time is valuable, Jason Abrams. Any other questions for Jason before Jen just wraps it up and announces our next guest? All right, Jason, thank you so much for what you've shared with us. Your time is super valuable. We really appreciate you being here and giving us your insights. Really, really do appreciate it.
It was my honor. And here's the thing. I know anytime I speak, I irritate at least 10% of the room and someone's offended and I get it. So I'm going to put my cell number in the chat log and my email address. And I've been through enough of these tonight. Instead of emailing my boss, which is Gary@kw.com. Can you just reach out to me directly and we'll handle it? Okay,
awesome. Great.
Jason, you are awesome. I really not enjoyed one of our sessions as much as this before. It has been such an absolute pleasure. And we are definitely taking you up on the offer of having you on again.
Thanks, you guys.
This was fabulous.
It's an honor for me. I think of Keller Williams like this giant garden, which is a little weird, but you're all part of it. And there's like this small group of us that get the opportunity to tend kind of nationally to it for a really short period of time, because Gary's going to find someone smarter and faster and better looking, all the things. He's the king of that. And so I know this is a short run for me. And I just want to tell you, it's the greatest honor of my life to get to do it. And I'm grateful for all of you guys. So thanks so much for letting me have the job.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, our next guest is Jason Abrams because he said he'd come back. Just kidding, Jason. We'll give a little space in between. But a reminder, I put a bunch of links in the chat to make sure I have your email address. It's the only way I can follow up. The call maxed out, so there are a lot of people that weren't not able to get into the call, and but don't worry. If you are on our email list, then you will get a follow-up and you can share the recording with your team. So make sure you're on the list, and my email's there if you missed the link. Again, we meet every first Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern time. So our next call is on September 7th. And our speaker for September 7th is the CEO of Cyberbackers. His name is Craig Goodlife, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how to take advantage of resources and tools for luxury minded and luxury focused agents. So we're excited about that.
Jen, I think the timing was great, Jen. You announcing this now right after Jason said to have all that work, handed over to a VA. So now we're going to tell you who the VAs are and how to get them.
100%. I thought timely too. It came up a few times. So again, I'm going to pop into the text, all Jason, Anjali, and my email address, and the link if you are not on our email list, so that's the best way to communicate, so that I can send you all the information, including information on Jason's Thursday call, which is called School is Cool. So I'll make sure all of that's wrapped up in the follow-up email. Anybody wants to hang on and talk about referrals or needs a luxury agent, then hang on for a minute as everybody else goes away, and we'll chat and see if we can connect you with somebody. And otherwise, we will see you guys next first Wednesday, which is September 7th. September 7th.
Thank you all so much for joining us. And please remember, if you know of someone who can, who you think would be a good speaker to have, who would enlighten all of us, please, it would be our pleasure to reach out to them. Just send us the name. We would love to invite them on the call so then all of us can learn from them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.